Britain does towns rather well. Market squares with a war memorial slightly off-centre. Charity shops next to estate agents next to a Greggs. One-way systems that were designed by someone who clearly held a grudge against motorists. A Costa coffee on the high street. Another Costa coffee round the corner. A third one inside the Tesco. Comforting. Predictable. The kind of places where you know what you are getting before you arrive. But scattered across these islands are towns so genuinely strange that when you describe them to people, they assume you are making it up. I have gone through council records, local histories, census data, and more community forum posts than any reasonable person should read to bring you 12 towns where something is delightfully, bafflingly, and sometimes inexplicably odd. Now, before we dive in, if you find this helpful, tap that subscribe button. You will not want to miss what is coming next. Let us begin in Dorset, in a hamlet that has spent the better part of 1,000 years dealing with a problem most communities never have to face. The problem is its name. The hamlet is called Shitterton. That is its actual, legal, historically documented name. It sits at the western edge of Bere Regis, roughly halfway between Poole and Dorchester, tucked along a quiet lane that branches off the A35. About 50 households, thatched cottages, a river running through it. The architectural historian Nikolaus Pevsner once described it as the best part of Bere Regis. It is, by all accounts, a genuinely beautiful place to live. The name dates to the Domesday Book of 1086, where it was recorded as Scatera. In Old English, it means farmstead on the stream used as an open sewer. Over the centuries, the spelling modernized, but the meaning stayed exactly the same. And so did the consequences. The village sign was stolen every 2 to 3 years for decades. Teenagers, stag parties, anyone who fancied a laugh and owned a screwdriver. The council would replace it. Someone would nick it again. This cycle continued well into the 2000s until the residents decided enough was enough. In 2010, more than half the households chipped in £20 each. The parish council added £70. They hired a truck and a crane and installed a 1.5-ton block of Purbeck stone at the entrance, with the name carved deep into both sides. Total cost £680. Ian Ventham, the chairman of the parish council, explained the logic simply. Let us put in 1.5 tons of stone and see them try and take that away in the back of a Ford Fiesta. The stone still stands. Nobody has managed to move it, and the residents remain, as Ventham put it, not the least bit embarrassed. In 2012, the hamlet was voted Britain's worst place name in a national survey. The people of Shitterton did not seem particularly bothered. They have had 1,000 years to make their peace with it. Travelling west across the Irish Sea to the island of Anglesey in North Wales, we find a village with a different kind of naming problem. Not that the name is rude, but that nobody can pronounce it, spell it, or fit it on an envelope. The village is called Llanfairpwllgwyngyll Gogorichwyr Ndrobvul Gogogok, 58 characters long, the longest place name in Europe. It translates roughly as the Church of St Mary in the hollow of the White Hazel near the Rapid Whirlpool and the Church of St Tysilio near the Red Cave. Here is what most people do not know. The name is not ancient, it is not traditional. It was invented in the 1860s as a marketing stunt. The original village name was Llanfairpwllgwyngyll, which is perfectly normal Welsh. But when the railway arrived, someone, likely a local cobbler, or possibly the tailor from Menai Bridge, depending on which account you trust, decided that the village needed a name long enough to attract tourists stepping off the train. They were right. Over 160 years later, the railway station sign stretches the full width of the platform and remains one of the most photographed objects in Wales. The locals call the village Llanfairpwllgwyngyll. They sell mugs and fridge magnets and tea towels bearing the full name. The cobbler who invented it could never have imagined what he started. A village of roughly 3,100 people, thriving on a joke that has outlived the man who told it by more than a century. If you want a shorter name with an equally unlikely story, head north to Perthshire in Scotland. The hamlet of Dull sits on a single road. The population is roughly 84. There is not a great deal to Dull. A scattering of houses, farmland, quiet roads. The name derives from a Pictish word meaning meadow, which is about as gentle an origin as any place could hope for. But in 2012, Dull did something that put it on every news bulletin in the country. It formally twinned with boring Oregon in the United States. The following year, Bland in New South Wales, Australia joined the arrangement. The three communities now call themselves the League of Extraordinary Communities, sometimes referred to as the Trinity of Tedium. The twinning ceremonies were real. The road signs are real. Visitors genuinely travel to Dull to photograph themselves next to the welcome sign that announces the partnership. A community of 84 people now has an international brand. There is a lesson in there somewhere about what happens when you lean into the absurdity instead of running from it. Heading southeast into Oxfordshire, we arrive at a place where the weirdness was not chosen by the residents, but inflicted upon them, and nobody could work out why. Kidlington sits roughly 5 miles north of Oxford. It has a population of around 14,000. It has shops, banks, a library and 7 pubs. It appeared in the Domesday Book. It was once home to the Oxford Zoo. For most of its existence, absolutely nothing remarkable happened in Kidlington. Then, in the summer of 2016, coachloads of Chinese tourists began arriving on Benmead Road, an entirely ordinary suburban street of semi-detached houses. They got off the bus and started taking photographs of the houses, of the front gardens, of the parked cars, of the wheelie bins, of the driveways. One tourist reportedly jumped on a resident's trampoline. This happened not once, but weekly, for months. Residents watched from behind their net curtains, completely bewildered. Nobody in the village spoke Mandarin. Nobody could ask the visitors what they were doing. The parish council created questionnaires translated into Chinese and handed them out when the next coach arrived. The answers said the tourists wanted to see the true sense of Britain. That seemed to explain it. But a journalist later discovered the real reason. Chinese tour operators were charging £50 extra for Mandarin language guided tours of Blenheim Palace, a few miles up the road. Tourists who did not want to pay the surcharge were dropped in Kidlington instead, which was too far from the palace to allow them to walk there and buy the cheaper English language ticket. The tourists were not drawn to Kidlington by its charm. They were parked there by their tour company as a penalty for being frugal, and yet they genuinely seemed to enjoy it. The most successful tourism campaign in Oxfordshire history turned out to be entirely accidental. Names are one thing, but some towns are not merely called something odd. They do something ODD, and they have been doing it, in some cases, for longer than anyone can explain. Every spring bank holiday Monday in Brockworth, Gloucestershire, people throw themselves down Cooper's Hill chasing a £9 round of double Gloucester cheese. The hill has a gradient of approximately 1 in 2, and in places it is nearly vertical. The cheese, once released, can reach speeds of 70 miles per hour. No competitor has ever caught it while remaining upright. What happens instead is controlled falling. 30 or so people commit to the slope, immediately lose their footing, and tumble 200 feet to the bottom, while the cheese bounces ahead of them like a dairy cannonball. The event dates to at least the 1800s, and possibly the 1500s. It was briefly cancelled in 2010 over safety concerns. The locals ran it anyway as an unofficial event. Ambulances are pre-positioned at the bottom of the hill. Emergency crews treat broken bones, dislocations, and concussions every year. The cheese is supplied by Diana Smart, a local farmer who has been providing the rounds from her own herd for decades. The winner keeps the cheese. There is no prize money. There is no trophy. There is a £9 wheel of double Gloucester and whatever dignity you have left after rolling down a cliff face in front of thousands of spectators and a growing international television audience. If cheese rolling sounds reckless, travel southwest to Devon, where a quiet market town of roughly 4,800 people does something considerably more alarming once a year. Ottery St Mary. On the 5th of November, while the rest of Britain watches fireworks from behind safety barriers, the people of Ottery St Mary carry blazing barrels of tar on their backs through the town's narrow streets. The barrels weigh up to 30 kilograms. They are soaked in tar for months before the event. They are set alight and hoisted onto the shoulders of carriers who run through crowds packed into lanes barely wide enough for a car. There is no barrier between the flames and the spectators. Sparks shower into the crowd. Burning tar drips from the disintegrating barrels. The carriers know exactly when to drop them, not by a signal, but by feel. The tradition dates to at least the 17th century. The runs start in the afternoon with small barrels carried by children. They escalate through the evening. The final barrel, the midnight barrel, is the heaviest and most dangerous. Carriers are selected from local pub teams. To carry a barrel is not a stunt. It is a mark of belonging. The tradition passes through families. Outsiders watch. Locals carry. The distinction matters deeply. For one night a year, this gentle Devon town becomes something ancient and primal and entirely unconcerned with modern risk assessments. Heading north into the East Riding of Yorkshire, we find a village that manages to be both a punchline and a genuine archaeological treasure at the same time. Wetwang. Population roughly 700. The name appears in the Domesday Book as Wetwanga. It sounds like a joke, but the origins are Viking and dead serious. It comes from the Old Norse Wetwanga, meaning field of summons or field for the trial of a legal action. This was a place where Viking justice was dispensed. Disputes were settled here, possibly by trial by combat, over 1,000 years ago. In 2001, archaeologists discovered something remarkable beneath the fields. An Iron Age chariot burial, dating to roughly 300 BC. The grave contained a woman aged between 35 and 45, buried with a decorated chariot, a bronze mirror, and joints of pork. The burial strongly suggests she was a person of very high status, possibly a tribal queen. The chariot and its contents are now displayed in the Hull and East Riding Museum. Meanwhile, above ground, the village hosts an annual Scarecrow Festival that draws visitors from across Yorkshire. Wetwang is a place where a Viking justice field, an Iron Age queen and competitive scarecrow building coexist without the slightest sense of contradiction. The locals take it all in stride. The name features on the regional radio station's jingle. They have heard every joke. They are not impressed by yours. If Wetwang blends comedy with deep history, Whittlesey in Cambridgeshire blends the deeply strange with the deeply local. Every January, a man is dressed entirely in straw, head to foot, until no part of him is visible. He is the Straw Bear. He dances through the streets of the town, led by a keeper, while hundreds of Morris dancers follow behind. The festival lasts 3 days. On the final day, Sunday, the bear is burned. The tradition dates to at least the 19th century. A ploughman would don the straw suit and entertain townspeople in exchange for money, beer and food on the day after Plough Monday. In 1909, the local police suppressed the custom, declaring it a form of begging. The straw bear disappeared for over 70 years. Then, in 1980, local historians brought it back. It has grown every year since. The man inside the costume cannot see well. The straw is extraordinarily hot and heavy. He is guided through the streets by his keeper, trusting that the path ahead is clear. Whittlesey has a population of around 16,000. Most of them know exactly what the straw bear means. If you ask them to explain it to an outsider, they will try. But the explanation never quite captures what it feels like to watch a man made of straw dance through the January cold in a Cambridgeshire market town while an entire community watches in something close to reverence. Traditions are performed. They happen once a year, and then the town returns to normal. But some places are strange, not on a particular day, but every single day. Their strangeness is structural. It is built into the walls. On a cliff overlooking the Dwirid estuary in North Wales, there is an Italian village. Pastel-coloured buildings, a campanile bell tower, classical statues, a central piazza, palm trees, gelato. This is Portmeirion. It is not in Italy. It is in Gwynedd, roughly halfway between Penrhyn Dewdraeth and Porthmadog, in the shadow of Snowdonia. It has no permanent residence. It never has. It exists because one man spent 50 years building it to prove a point. Sir Clough Williams-Ellis was a wealthy and eccentric architect who believed that buildings could enhance nature rather than spoil it. He began constructing Portmeirion in 1925 and continued until 1975. He incorporated fragments of demolished buildings from across Britain, including a ceiling he bought at auction for £13. He denied copying the Italian fishing village of Portofino, though he admitted that its image remained with him as an almost perfect example of the man-made adornment of an exquisite site. The village was used as the filming location for the cult 1960s television series The Prisoner. Noel Coward wrote Blithe Spirit while staying there. George Harrison celebrated his 50th birthday there. Paul McCartney visited. Gregory Peck and Ingrid Bergman visited. It is now run by a charitable trust with over 96 buildings. Day visitors must leave by early evening. Overnight guests have the piazza to themselves after dark. Standing there, eating gelato, looking up at a Baroque bell tower while Welsh mountains rise behind it, you forget entirely where you are. That was the point. Williams-Ellis spent half a century proving that architecture could make people happy. The evidence suggests he was right. From a village where nobody lives to a village where living requires negotiating gravity on a daily basis. Clovelly sits on the North Devon coast, roughly 12 miles west of Bideford. It has a population of around 440. No car has ever driven down the main street, making the village car-free. The main street is a cobbled staircase, and it plunges 400 feet down the cliff to the harbour below. The cobbles are made from pebbles set on their edges, and they have been worn smooth by centuries of feet. Supplies are delivered by wooden sledge. Donkeys historically carried everything up and down the slope. Some of them still do for tourists. Clovelly has been privately owned since before the Norman conquest. The Hamlin family held it for generations. Today, the estate manages the entire village, and cottages are rented to residents. Nobody owns their own home. Visitors pay an entrance fee at the top of the cliff. It is, in a quite literal sense, a village behind a paywall. Charles Dickens visited and wrote about it. Charles Kingsley set part of Westward Ho here. The village appears in the Domesday Book of 1086 as Clove Hiller. Living in Clovelly means accepting that every delivery is an event. A new sofa requires planning, manpower, and considerable patience. Emergencies rely on the cliff path. Some residents have lived there for decades and cannot imagine leaving. Others find the gradient impossible and move within a year. The harbour sits at the bottom, quiet and ancient. The whitewashed cottages climb the cliff above it, with flowers spilling from every windowsill. It is one of the most photographed villages in England, and one of the most physically demanding places in the country to receive a parcel. From a town that struggles with geography to a town that has been at war with technology for 3 decades. Scunthorpe in Lincolnshire, population roughly 82,000. It is an industrial town built on steel, with a history stretching back to the Domesday Book. Its name derives from the Old Norse Eskumatorp, meaning the homestead of a man called Skuma. There is nothing offensive about its history, its people, or its heritage. But there is, unfortunately, a 4-letter word embedded in its name that automated internet filters have been unable to ignore since the mid-1990s. The problem was first widely reported in 1996, when AOL's profanity filter blocked residents of Scunthorpe from creating accounts. The town simply could not be typed into the system without triggering a content violation. The issue became so well documented that computer scientists gave it a formal name: the Scunthorpe problem. It appears in academic papers, software engineering textbooks, and programming courses around the world, and it has not gone away. As recently as the 2020s, residents report difficulties with online forms, social media registrations, and automated moderation systems. Penistone in South Yorkshire suffers from the same affliction. So does Lightwater in Surrey, for different reasons. The residents of Scunthorpe have endured this with a resigned and distinctly British humour. They did not choose the name. They did not invent the internet. And yet here they are, a community of 82,000 people, rejected by algorithms that cannot grasp that a 1,000-year-old Viking settlement predates content moderation by a comfortable margin. We end not with the largest or the strangest, but with the smallest. Fordwich in Kent. Population approximately 400. It sits on the River Stour, roughly 2 miles northeast of Canterbury. It is little more than a cluster of houses, a medieval church and a town hall, built in the 1540s, that remains one of the oldest in England. Fordwich is officially the smallest town in Britain, not the smallest village. The smallest town. It has a mayor. It has a town council. It has the full civic apparatus that most people associate with places 100 times its size. The reason is history. Fordwich has held town status since at least 1184. It was a limb of the Cinque Ports, the confederation of coastal towns that supplied ships to the crown in exchange for trading privileges. Ships docked at Fordwich Quay, carrying cairn stone from Normandy for the construction of Canterbury Cathedral, which began in 1070. The town sent 2 members of Parliament to Westminster until the Reform Act of 1832. Inside the town hall, which once received customs duties from international shipping, there is a medieval ducking stool preserved in working condition. It was used to punish dishonest tradesmen by plunging them into the river, bakers who sold underweight loaves, brewers who watered their ale. Justice was swift, wet, and public. Today, the mayor presides over a community smaller than most primary schools. The town hall that once processed international trade now hosts parish meetings about hedge trimming and dog fouling, and whether the footpath by the river needs resurfacing. The ducking stool is shown to visitors with a certain quiet pride. The quay, where ships once landed stone for a cathedral, is empty. The full weight of English civic tradition, mayors, councils, ancient charters, and medieval punishment equipment, all of it applied to a community you could walk across in 4 minutes. Please watch the video appearing on your screen next, and do not forget to subscribe to Cottage Dreams.